Lyons site. Services for the blind and visually impaired. Graphic of a lion's head in black and white on a gray background. Hello, I'm Keenan Fry, and this is for my interactive read aloud assignment. We're going to do an interactive read aloud for two books. We have over here on the right the Shirley Chisholm She Was First. This is kind of like a biographical story. And then we have over here on the right, or excuse me, on the left, the Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. Um, this lesson plan has a couple of ideas regarding specifically concepts like ethics and morals. So we're going to look at these two texts and we're going to compare them. So there'll be 4 videos in this series: this introduction, a video for She Was First, a video for Hello, I'm Johnny Cash, and then the 4th video will be some discussion questions, and you'll be able to watch those as a video series. The discussion questions that I'm starting off with are, and this is part of the lesson objective, students will understand the context and concept for an ethical social rule. So the context is the way something is presented, and then the concept of ethics unto themselves. Students will understand the context and concept for a moral social rule. So we have one for ethics and one for morals. We're talking about context and concepts. Then they'll understand, number 3 will be students will understand when a change in an ethical rule is called for. So when you need to change a rule, particularly an ethical rule, students will understand when a change is needed in a moral rule, and then they will understand how ethics and morals combine to make a more balanced society. So a society that is purely ethical is out of balance, and a society that's purely moral is out of balance. It's only when ethics and morals are balanced against each other. So technically you could use either of these books to talk about ethics or morals. They both actually present very strong concepts, but how we're going to define this is part of you preparing to teach the lesson if you're going to use this material yourself. Basically the way to conceptualize it is pick one of the books and really keynote and underline the themes of morals in that book, then pick the other book and make that the one about ethics. You could technically teach this entire lesson twice, where She Was First is the book about ethics and Hello, I'm Johnny Cash is about morals, but you would be able to flip them and teach She Was First from a moralistic standpoint and Hello, I'm Johnny Cash from an ethical standpoint. Really, the point is to try and counterbalance them. Now, in this presentation, I'm going to lean into the idea that She Was First, the Shirley Chisholm story, is a story about ethics. And the Johnny Cash story is going to be a story about morals. And the reason is that ethics are secular. Specifically, ethics have to do with a set of rules that are not informed by any religious conception of right and wrong. Hello, I'm Johnny Cash, however, takes on a more theological viewpoint because he was a gospel singer. So the value of that is we're going to juxtapose these two systems, ethics being one that is absent of a theological underpinning, and morals being theologically informed, and we're going to counterbalance them. So this discussion you wouldn't necessarily have with the kids themselves. This is just a conceptualization for how you would go about teaching the lesson. As I said, there's 5 points in this that you really want them to take home. What is the context and concept? And so the context is what makes something a good rule, what makes something a bad rule, and then the concept being, well, what is an ethical rule? What is a moral rule? And then understanding when changes are called for in those systems, and then understanding how those systems are only in balance when they are counterbalanced. So ethics counterbalancing morals, morals counterbalancing ethics. So this isn't one side or the other, or one side over the other. It's the two in equilibrium. So it's a middle path is what we're really trying to emphasize. So the first text we're going to read is Shirley Chisholm. I have some questions that I will preview the text with. Very brief pre-teaching, mostly going to be me reading. Then I'm going to go into Johnny Cash. The Johnny Cash section will also include very brief pre-teaching in terms of questions, but there is part of the pre-teaching that's going to involve playing two of his songs. One of them is God's Gonna Cut You Down. This is a gospel song, and this relates to the concept of morals being ethically inclined, being religiously inclined. Just contradicted myself there, I apologize. Morals being religiously or theologically inclined, and then the song Man in Black. So you'll hear in God's Gonna Cut You Down a little bit of an evangelical reference, but it's very little to do with religion in itself in terms of the concept of proselytizing, and more to do with what would be considered righteousness. That is, an individual who knows between right and wrong. And then the song Man in Black is going to talk about human suffering, and we're going to examine that through the lens of Johnny Cash's life, but we're also going to examine that through Shirley Chisholm's, and we're going to examine it through how Shirley Chisholm did things to make her environment different and better by becoming political. And then we're going to talk about how Johnny Cash did it himself by being a singer, and how they had two different methods of improving their society, improving the rules of their society. So she went about it in a political manner, and he went about it in a social manner through music, through artistic means. She's social political, he's social artistic. And so they're two different systems, two different approaches, and it'll be interesting because when the kids explore the two books, they'll be asked questions to see how they're different, how they're similar, and a lot of analysis will be placed on comparing. And because we're going to do this as a read aloud, the kids won't necessarily have to put in a great amount of effort into decoding. It's really going to just be about them listening and trying to get the story itself. And that will probably facilitate their comprehension and further enable their discussion afterwards when they talk about morals and ethics and what they think of each of these people. So that's it for the introduction video. We're now going to get into the reading. Thanks for watching. I hope that wasn't too convoluted. I'll attach the document in the description so you can download it and get the structured format. And the document will be made accessible for the visually impaired using subheadings. All right. Thank you. I'm Keenan Fry. This is Lyons Site Services. Lyons Site. Regular updates on blind and visually impaired tutorials will be available for all kinds of topics. Thanks for watching.